Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some r/AmITheDevil for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading the posts, giving you my own opinion, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Cross-posted from r/AmITheAsshole. Am I the asshole for doing woodworking at night? Hi, first time posting here, so sorry if the format is a little off, ! I have a split schedule at work, giving me Monday and Friday off. Friday, I spend with my husband, and most other days of the week, he's at work when I'm home, so our house is pretty quiet. But Mondays, because I have it all to myself, I've been woodworking on creating a wooden bench out of reclaimed 2x4s. I had my headphones in, listening to music, sanding paint off the wood, when neighbor popped open her window to yell at me for making too much noise. Now, I do feel like a bit of an ass because I'm a night owl, working late shifts and all. However, if my neighbor was making a bunch of noise, I would just ignore it or find a way to block it out. I do understand that for most people who work daytime hours, midnight seems low. Midnight seems late, but seriously, it's at most one night a week and sanding is not even loud. I don't know, it's not like I was blasting music for a bumping party and this was the first time she has said anything to me about it. But I would understand if people mention how late it was. But am I the asshole for woodworking at night, or is she the asshole for complaining? So a belt sander's operating sound can be anywhere between 70 to 100 decibels of noise depending on the model. 70 decibels would be like a vacuum cleaner, and upwards to 90 decibels is a mower. 95 decibels is a motorcycle or a subway car, and upwards to 100 is a snowmobile going at full speed. So, in a sense, you are basically revving a motorcycle engine at midnight, and you're confused as to why your neighbors are upset about that. Look, I'm a night owl. I'm more of a night owl than you will ever be. So I do understand wanting to do loud and noisy projects, but not able to because of the fact of your neighbors are sleeping. Hell, I have literally once run a power washer through my home, so that way it didn't make noise for the neighbors so I could wash my car at midnight. It's not even a joke, by the way. I made sure there was absolutely no noise outside so I could wash it in peace, but still. I took the precautions because I know my neighbors are regular people who don't live weird, obscure hours like I do. And you should know that as well. Running a belt sander and doing goddamn woodworking at midnight. That is crazy. And being shocked and flabbergasted that your neighbors wouldn't want to hear that while they're trying to sleep? Come on. If you really need to do woodworking at that hour, use hand tools, hand sand your equipment. Satisfying as hell, takes forever, yeah, but at the same time, you get your project done, and your neighbors don't have to open their window to yell at their crazy neighbor who's using a belt sander at midnight. Cross-posted from r/AmITheAsshole. Am I the asshole for joking that two girls should kiss? So I, an 18-year-old guy, went on a school trip over the weekend with a close group of friends. It was me, 3 of my guy friends, and 2 girls from our year. Basically, the 6 of us are going to climb a mountain together over 5 days. But leading up to that, we have to do 5 to 6 overnight expeditions locally to practice. The teachers sleep in a nearby campsite and come to check on us in the morning, and once we reach the camping trip. Over the last few months, we've all become closer. The girls, who I'll call K and L, are practically inseparable. They're both attractive, single, and honestly, they act like they're dating half of the time. They joke about it themselves. For example, K will say you're the best boyfriend I ever had. If L carries something heavy, or they'll laugh about cuddling in the tent. On one of our hikes, L said if she has to make out with one group member, it'd be K. We've done 2 practices so far. Anyway, during our latest practice trip while unpacking, we noticed the girls' packs were much lighter than ours. We asked how they managed that, and they told us they were sharing a ground sheet and even a sleeping bag. At first, we didn't believe them because those sleeping bags are already tight for one person, but they shrugged and said it would work fine since they're both small, and on the actual expedition, they'll do it too. Later after dinner, we were hanging out around the fire, and the rest of us agree that there's no way that the girls would fit in one sleeping bag. They said they'd prove us wrong. We changed to pajamas and gathered around their tent. K and L climbed in wearing shorts and tank tops, since they said it would get warm. We were watching 2 attractive girls, half-dressed, literally squeeze next to each other to zip up the bag. They got zipped in and they were joking. At one point, Kay said something like, "I'm literally palming your tits right now." I said, just kiss already, oh my god. Friend 1 said, yeah, give us a show. And we all laughed, including the girls. Friend 2 said, free softcore, or something like that. It wasn't serious at all, it was just joking. We had been doing all along. We started talking about, like, what we're gonna do in the morning, and changed the topic, but the vibe changed. K got quiet, and L said they were gonna sleep and asked us to close the tent. We didn't think much of it, but the next morning, both of them seemed noticeably quieter and kinda just kept to themselves. At the time, I didn't think it was a big deal since they often joke about being a couple. I honestly thought I was just pointing out what everyone was already thinking. Friend 3 thinks we made the girls uncomfortable, and the other trips are going to be awkward. Now I'm worried I might have messed up. Am I the asshole for making that comment? Edit. We talked as a group and we apologized. They said, yeah, it was a little weird in the moment and they were mostly put off by my friend, the one who said give us a show, but they didn't care that much. They told me they knew we're good guys who always look out for them, and they feel really safe with us. They were tired and sore in the morning because the sharing a sleeping bag thing didn't work very well. They also said they invited us to their tent to watch them squeeze into a sleeping bag, so they weren't exactly against the attention either. We're all good now. I don't know if I believe the edit, if I'm gonna be honest. But, user Winter86 comments, God's forbid that two girls are close and comfortable enough with each other that show, gasp, affection? This could also be a self-defense mechanism. They're severely outnumbered and can sense the leering from the boys. The comments they make to each other came across as not interested in you guys, especially the I'd rather kiss K, which means they've been bugging the girls for a while now about this subject. Sleeping in the same bag will also prevent the guys from attempting anything because it would make it almost impossible if one of them decides that this would be his chance. The guys making the comments cemented their thoughts. So if the joke stopped at just kiss already, that's one thing. Still a bit much, but it's one thing. But the fact that they were saying give us a show and that it's free softcore, that crosses into a potentially uncomfortable or unwarranted joke to just outright sexual harassment. And if you don't think that telling two girls to make out, give you a show, and that it's free softcore pornography isn't sexual harassment, then hitting you with an aluminum bat is an assault. That's just how that is. Like, this is just gross behavior. I don't believe the edit. I think they made them very uncomfortable, and they're just trying to do damage control at this point in time because OP realized how badly he fucked up based upon the comments on r/AmITheAsshole. It's pretty damn common that I'll end up seeing posts on r/AmITheAsshole where they get flamed in the comments, and suddenly there's an edit that's posted just a few hours later where suddenly they apologize and actually everyone in the comments is wrong and they're right and actually everything's fine now. It happens so goddamn often. And sure, there might be a few of them that are, telling the truth, but it makes it hard to discern which ones are and are not telling the truth, and which ones are just simply trying to do damage control because the public is ripping them to shreds. Cross-posted from r/relationship advice. My, 34 female, husband, 34 male, screamed at our daughter just for singing Golden. How do I get him to realize it's not okay? I met my husband 12 years ago and have been married for 7 years. He's generally a sweet and kind-hearted person, and is usually fun to be around. We have a 6-year-old daughter who's also terrific. Lately, her favorite film is K-pop Demon Hunters and absolutely loves singing the songs, especially Your Idol and Golden. She memorized all the lyrics. I know her constantly singing it can be a bit annoying, but I used to drive my parents crazy singing songs from The Lion King, so I don't mind too much. My husband, however, hated that film, and I tried to encourage her to sing only when he's not around. Yesterday, though, once she sung Golden, he flipped out and screamed at her and warned her not to sing anything from Demon Hunters anymore. I tried to calm him down, but he accuses me of lying to myself and says I secretly wanted it to stop, and that he's the brave one, enough to do something about it. As a result of his screaming, she won't talk to him. How do I get him to realize that it's not okay to scream and to apologize? Your husband thinks he's the brave one for yelling at a 6-year-old for singing music from a movie? So what makes AmITheDevil here is the fact that in the comments, they're actually doing some insane legwork in order to defend her husband. User Princess Pancake 97, who actually at one point was even arguing with OP, has gathered a list of the comments that OP had made. The first thread we're looking for starts with MoistFile8484. You sound like millions of abused women across the world. Abuse isn't acceptable just because he wasn't like this before. Even the language you're using is putting accountability on you instead of him. Do you genuinely believe he doesn't realize it's inappropriate to scream at a toddler for singing? Genuinely? The OP responded, "Never said it was, and I never shifted accountability. What he did was wrong. I just don't think nuking our otherwise positive relationship is a good idea." Again, the end of the post said, "How do I get him to realize that it's not okay to scream and to apologize?" MoistFile8484 responds further. "Look, we don't know your day-to-day life. What I do know is this incident is likely a core memory for your baby girl. Being screamed at by daddy for singing because he didn't like the song? If I do something a man doesn't like, he'll scream at me like daddy did. If I don't want to be screamed at, I should just be quiet." Walking on eggshells starts so young for little girls. This is heartbreaking. For both of your sakes, I truly hope this was a one-off, and ideally, he'll apologize on his own to his baby. Hopefully your daughter hasn't internalized that it's acceptable for men to be aggressive towards her. But I won't be surprised if this escalates. She deserves better. OP responds, "Again, that's why I'm trying to get him to apologize so said memory is erased." MoistFile8484 further responds, "That's not how that works. This isn't Inside Out. There's no magical eraser room for your baby's memories. This is the most critical point of memory development: attachment, sense of safety, parental trust. He compromised that. He can attempt to rebuild trust and make better choices, but even if he apologizes, she may never forget the moment her father terrified her to the point of not speaking to him. What's your plan if you can't force him to apologize? What if this wasn't a one-time thing?" In another comment thread posted by Salmon Toast, quote, "I tried to encourage her to sing only when he's not around." There are so many sad and problematic things about this situation, but this stood out to me. You and your husband are sending your daughter the message that the things she enjoys are annoying to the most important man in her life. And if she wants his approval, she should squash that part of her personality, at least when he's around. You are both using his moods, dad might get angry, to control her behavior. And it's not problem behavior, it's just something that brings her joy. This is really gonna screw up that kid." OP responds, "The way I saw it was more like a kid barging in when we're asleep. Playing around is fine at certain times." Lady ADHD responds to that comment, "That's not what she's learning though. She's learning that she's responsible for managing her parents' volatile emotions and maintaining the family dynamic by changing her behavior. And since what exactly triggers the angry outburst is unpredictable to a little kid, she will retreat further and further into herself in an attempt to avoid anything that could cause a reaction. When you grow up in that type of environment, you can't ever have your own problems or ask for help because protecting your parent from an emotion that they can't handle is more important than any of your needs. You can't develop your own identity. You can only develop the identity that fits into the restrictions you learn to keep yourself safe. It probably sounds dramatic, but these are the problems that your kid will be facing if your husband doesn't realize that his emotional immaturity is a problem for himself and others, and that it's a skill he can and needs to work on." OP responds, "So what you're saying is that when she misbehaves, it's our fault?" User Gina Bean responds, That's what you're taking away from a thread full of people telling you that your husband is abusive? Your poor daughter. I have always loved to sing, and my parents implemented a no singing at the table rule, so I would actually eat during dinner. When I violated that rule, I was misbehaving because it was a clear rule that I understood how to follow. If I violated it, the result was not screaming in anger. It was a simple and harmless punishment, like being sent away from the table for a short time out or being told I wouldn't get dessert. Quote, "Don't sing around your father or he will snap and scream at you and make you scared," is not a reasonable or healthy thing to teach a child, and she is not misbehaving by violating that command. There is a reasonable conversation to be had about how to teach a child to respect others' noise tolerances, but that conversation cannot happen in a world where your husband is verbally abusive to a 6-year-old over singing. User I was over on the bench comments, "I'm gonna dig a little deeper here since everyone else is giving good advice. Why didn't your husband like the movie? He doesn't have to, obviously, but a kid's movie about learning to love yourself and embrace all your parts? That triggers him so much? No explicit romance, message about sisterhood, short pop songs, a normal length runtime, essentially free for your kid to re-watch, the same way we all had burned holes in our VHSs. What is there, as a parent, to hate enough to end up screaming at your kid? Edit in case you don't get it, I'm trying to see if your husband is racist or homophobic. OP responds, he doesn't really like musicals and think this is an insult to him as he really loves shows about demon hunting. His favorite anime is Demon Slayer and the Mugen Train film is his favorite film. Bandage Bob responds, yes, Sony Animation Studios clearly made K-pop demon hunters to personally insult your husband. I'm sorry, but I think you married a moron, an abusive moron at that. OP responds, well, he's usually smart and calm. Bandage Bob catches them on that. He's usually calm. So there have been outbursts like this before. I assume he's also usually not abusive? And OP does double down on this exact reasoning later on. Little Sebastian's ghost comments, info! What is his issue with the movie? Why does he hate it so much? OP responds, he doesn't like musicals. He loves films and shows about demon slaying, with his favorite being Demon Slayer anime. He thinks that this is an insult to him. How old is this guy? 34? I'm going to stop here because I could keep going on with this for probably another 10 minutes and I would just be beating a dead horse. The reason why this is an r/AmITheDevil is because OP continues to defend their husband's actions and is drawing the line at, well, we have boundaries set, and the 6-year-old should have to follow those boundaries. So are we just supposed to let a 6-year-old do whatever she wants? Not realizing or listening to people who are trying to explain that what they've established is not a boundary, it's simply them trying to minimize the amount of abuse the father will inflict. OP is just desperately essentially twisting what other commenters are saying or trying to avoid the actual problem here, and more focused on making her daughter forget than looking at the wider problem that's right in front of her goddamn face. I'm going to give a preemptive content warning for this one. It's heavy, and it involves the loss of a life. Cross-posted to r/true off my chest. My negligence cost my partner her life, and I'm about to lose everything. I, 35 male, have been married to Lisa, 28 female, for 3 years, together for 7. A year ago, I fell deeply in love with Amy, 24 female. Well, he has an age demographic he likes. And had been planning to end my marriage for her. I know it's terrible and not what my wife deserves, but we were the real thing. 2 weeks ago, she had an allergic reaction when we were getting food after work, but she used her EpiPen and seemed mostly okay afterwards. She usually gets checked at the hospital after a reaction, but I asked if I could take her home and she could get her friend to drive her there because my wife was expecting me back. All I know is that she had a secondary reaction that evening and died. I didn't find out about it until the following Monday, through a work email. It has been eating me up ever since, and I will never forgive myself for not sacrificing an hour of my time to possibly save her. I sent some childish messages to Amy when I didn't hear from her over the weekend because I thought she was angry I didn't take her to the hospital. I'm thankful she never saw them, and ashamed that I assumed the worst. Our relationship was great and the heights far outweighed the lows, but I've always hated being ignored and I lose my cool when it happens. It's not a regular occurrence and I would have more than made up for it. Yesterday at work, HR and legal were in the CEO's office all day, and my manager ended up canceling our project meeting because he was with them all afternoon. I was on edge, but an affair isn't exactly a corporate crisis, and I thought something would have already happened if anyone knew. I am now 99% certain it was about me. A few hours ago, I received a message from Amy's phone which said, "This is Amy's brother, Tom. I want you to know it was me." I tried to call, but it went straight to voicemail, and none of my messages have been delivered. I tried to call my manager more times than I should have, and he sent me a message saying, "Please don't contact me until Monday morning. I can't discuss anything with you right now." So it looks like my universe is going to collapse. I'm going to be fired, and my wife will definitely find out why. All I can do is hope that Amy's brother only showed them messages from that weekend, and they were bad enough. I have no family except my wife and daughter and nowhere to go. All of my friends are either people I've met through my wife or my colleagues. On Monday, everything I've spent over a decade working towards disappears. I can't stop it. I can't talk to anyone about it. So here I am. I know cheaters are the devil, so I'm not expecting sympathy, but this is making my chest hurt, and I need to get out of here. Update: my negligence cost my partner her life, and I'm about to lose everything. I've been consistently harassed for an update since posting, so please take it to gloat, because you're such wonderful people in comparison. You killed someone, motherfucker. Then stop following me around Reddit. I'm suffering in the wake of my infidelity and unprofessional behavior as I knew I would. I understand that it is an appropriate outcome, and I am taking full accountability. I was suspended from work on Monday, and I'll probably be fired sooner than I thought. I'd hoped to be able to save money as HR built their case, but it looks like Amy's brother basically performed the entire investigation for them. After... what are they investigating? I'd hoped to be able to save money as HR built their case, but it looks like Amy's brother basically performed the entire investigation for them. After an excruciating 3-hour run through everything they had, I spoke to the founder and he recommended the solicitor I am now using. The issue is that the company has to come down hard to protect themselves, because even though Amy's family doesn't have much chance of a claim, any suggestion of a cover-up could cause damage regardless. The founder still thinks my offer to pay them back will keep it out of court. The founder still thinks my offer to pay them back will keep it out of court. The founder still thinks my offer to pay them back will keep it out of court. And some more information has come to light, so it's not certain I won't be prosecuted, but I'm quietly hopeful. I can't afford to keep the solicitor if this goes much further, especially with a divorce on the horizon. I have a theory as to what happened. This isn't about the death of Amy, this is about something else. Something monetary that was uncovered in the messages. Hence why there's an amount to be paid back. Amy's death is definitely a tragedy in this, but I feel like the actual problem that's consuming OP is not Amy's death, but what they found in the messages, in regards to the company. OP has done something, potentially with Amy, that requires the full cooperation of HR, legal, the CEO, and the manager. Something that has a monetary value. Because there's no way in fucking hell, if OP was being investigated by the company for the death of Amy, that a dollar amount would get him out of court. I think that insertion was a slip-up, and he's trying to keep this revolving around it being entirely about Amy's death, when in reality, something was found. Sorry, we'll continue. Things are not good with my wife. I'm still committed to making this as easy as possible for her, but I had to draw a line when it came to my daughter. God fucking damn it! Dude! When I got home from being unceremoniously escorted out of my office, she already had a bag packed for me. She wouldn't let me wait at the house until my daughter was back. She wouldn't let me check I had everything I needed. She wouldn't let me take the car. And she didn't care that I had nowhere to go. I spent 2 nights in a hotel, then went back when she refused to let me see my little girl. She tried to stop me. But we own the house jointly, and it was my only option. My wife has family she could stay with, but she won't leave our daughter here, and she's absolutely not taking her. So, we're at a stalemate right now. I'm keeping out of her way as best I can, which I appreciate is the least I can do. The Amy situation is quite difficult to talk about, and a lot hasn't sunk in yet. It turns out that she doesn't love me as much as I loved her, if at all. Her brother sent me messages of her talking to her friends about me, and it's hard to believe they came from the person I loved. But they are real. Sorry to those who were heavily invested in me being a predatory abuser, but she and her friends had a good laugh about her manipulating me for money, there it is, and a promotion. The role came with a big pay rise, and it looks like her plan was to treat it as free cash, then go work with one of her friends when it fell through. She knew I'd come under scrutiny whenever she messed up and assumed I'd keep stepping in to save her. She was right. Obviously, I'm completely humiliated. I was planning to give up everything to build a life with her, and she was treating me like a joke the whole time. My feelings are complicated, so please don't feel entitled to any expansion on this. But I no longer feel guilt over her death. Reddit acted like I kept her hostage while she begged for help. What actually happened was that I asked if she could ask her friend to take her to the hospital because I had to go home. She said that was fine because she needed to get some clothes back from her anyway. And I dropped her off as normal. Ultimately, she was an adult who had a better understanding of her medical needs than I did. I still don't know what happened between us saying goodbye and her death, but whatever it was, it had nothing to do with me. I'm sorry for her family's loss, but I bear no responsibility for her passing. After Amy's messages to her friends were passed around, a few people quietly reached out with words of support. I assumed everyone would write me off like Reddit did, as an abuser and predator. Now it's clear that Amy was using me. They see me as a fool who had then lost it all. It's beyond humiliating, but I have learned I'd rather be pitied than despised. And it improves my legal position with work. They're small mercies, but I'll take what I can get. I remain filled with regret, and I will have learned many lessons by the time I get through this. I may have been deceived, but I'm a grown man who made my choices, and I take full responsibility for them. No, you're not. I'm sorry for her family's loss, but I bear no responsibility for her passing. Followed by, and I take full responsibility for them. Too long didn't read. I'm currently suspended from work, but will certainly be fired. It's unclear whether I am in serious legal trouble. My wife and I are not navigating the end of our relationship brilliantly, but for my daughter's sake, we will get better. Amy turned out to be a better manipulator than she was a project manager, and her brother outed her whilst trying to ruin me. Life is deservedly hard right now, but I'm working through it. The thing is, I'm just rolling back to this because, dude, you're actually just not taking any responsibility. You were afraid of your wife finding out about your affair, so rather than take her to the hospital, you instead dropped her off at home. An EpiPen is not a cure-all for an allergic reaction. It's a pause button. It pauses the reaction so you can get proper help. The clock was ticking for her. You could have literally dropped her off, she could have closed the door behind her, and boom. That's it. You have no idea what happened. The thing is, you trying to brush off all kind of responsibility when there's a decent fucking chance she could not have gotten any kind of help because the reaction could have just hit her way too fucking quick and there was no way for her to call for help or get any kind of assistance. And the fact that it took more than a week for anyone to hear from her again and you just thought that she was angry at you and skipping work in addition to that means that no one knew where she was for days. She wasn't able to contact anyone. That's on you. You wanted to hide your affair, so rather than bring someone to the hospital so they could get the treatment they needed, dropped her off and made her get secondary help, which by the sounds of it, she was never able to get. And I know that you know this because the title of the post is, "My negligence cost my partner her life." The thing is, sure, what Amy did was scummy to you, but at the same time, dude, you were cheating on your wife. With Amy. You had a daughter with her. And if I were to hazard a guess, I think you were stealing money from the company that wasn't yours to pay for things that Amy wanted, because you mentioned money. My guess would be is because you probably share your finances with your wife, there wasn't an easy way for you to go and just simply use your own cards. And judging by your position, you probably had a company card. And that company card was probably used in a lot of ways that it shouldn't have been. Hence why Amy was with you for the money and for the promotion, and the reason why you feel as though if you pay the money back, it'll be kept out of court. And my guess would be, overall, in those messages with Amy, you mentioned using the company card for those details, which is why the investigation was so quick because you texted her about the fraud you were committing. Quirky little messages probably along the lines of, "No worry, babe, I'll just put on the company card." And additionally, I would also guess that those quirky little messages that you sent her because you thought she was mad at you that you mentioned in the first post were seen by Tom, who then also noticed in those messages that you probably mentioned that you chose not to take her to the hospital as part of your apology because you thought she was mad at you. And Tom, potentially, after finding his sister, in God knows what kind of state, sees messages of the person that she was seeing who also had a wife, left her, chose not to take her to the hospital to maintain his affair, and he was left with the aftermath of that, and rightfully so, drug your ass through the mud. Hey, welcome to the outro. Don't forget this whole thing is basically brought to you by GamerSupps. If you like caffeine, then I can't recommend GamerSupps enough. Use code OZ at checkout to support the channel. And I do actually use this product. It's replaced all other sources of caffeine for me because I feel good. It doesn't have any of that extra stuff that a pre-workout blend might have. It's with a couple of the extra things to make it so you don't crash as hard. It's good. I like it. Personally, if you really want a good flavor, try the Soda Pressing Pear or even the Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are my personal favorites right now.